Hello, and welcome to Small Business Success Stories at SCORE Houston. This is where we bring insights, experiences, and the journey of successful small business entrepreneurs. SCORE mentors volunteer their time to guide small businesses. SCORE is America's largest network of volunteer business mentors supported by the U.S. Small Business Administration. Here in Houston, we provide free confidential mentoring and education to help entrepreneurs start, grow, and succeed. Now, let's dive into today's small business success story.
Welcome to Small Business Success Stories, brought to you by SCORE Houston. I'm your host, mentor PV Bala, and today I'm thrilled to introduce an entrepreneur who turned a lifelong passion into thriving business while raising a young family. Dr. Tarina Desai is the founder and owner of Artavi Med Spa, located in Houston's Heights, Mercantile. As a board-certified family medicine physician, Dr. Desai took an unconventional path, leaving her career as a hospitalist to pursue her dream of opening a medical aesthetic practice. What makes Dr. Desai's story particularly inspiring is that she launched Artavi Med Spa in May 2018 while pregnant, had a second child just 1 year after opening, and still managed to build an impressive business. Today, Artavi Med Spa serves over 2,000 patients, employs a team of 6, generates 1.5 million annual revenue. But Dr. Desai didn't do it alone. When she realized she needed help navigating the business world, she turned to SCORE Houston. Her mentors helped her develop a comprehensive business plan, create financial forecasts, connect with banking partners, and provided invaluable guidance as she learned the ins and outs of entrepreneurship. Dr. Desai's journey showcases the power of combining clinical expertise with business acumen, the importance of mentorship, and proof that with passion, planning, and the right support, you can successfully balance entrepreneurship with family life. Welcome, Dr. Tarina Desai, to Small Business Success Stories.
Thank you.
You know, the conversation that we had the other day helped me understand your startup as a process much better. So I could come out with some list of questions that could help the listeners, especially the small business owners, learn of your journey. Okay.
Okay.
You practiced as a hospitalist for some time. What was the specific moment when you decided to leave the traditional medicine, start your own med spa? And you bridge your childhood passion that you had for skincare with medical training to create this business concept. That's great.
Yeah. So when I was practicing as a hospitalist, I already had it in my mind that I was going to open this. The thought of opening it came when I was in residency. Throughout residency, I wanted to be a hospitalist, but you have to take certain electives. And one of my last electives that I did in residency was an aesthetics elective. I was just curious to see what that was about. And so when I did that elective, I realized that this is what I would really love to do because, in my opinion, the kinds of stuff that we did there in that aesthetics clinic was stuff that I would just like to do on my own as a hobby. And if I could combine that with my work or make it my work, that would be a dream job. And so I had mentioned that to my husband, and he really encouraged me to do that. Typically, when you're a hospitalist, you will be able to do it for a few years and you get burned out. So in my head, I was like, okay, when I get burned out, I will, work on doing the med spa business. And so that's how it worked out for me.
Well, that's very fortunate that your husband encouraged you to take the leap. Now tell me, based on such experience, how important was having such a family support system when starting?
Oh, it was extremely important. I know that I would not been able to do everything the way I did without having that. And at that time, especially because we had just bought a new home, we had just started as a physician. So our first real step into adult life, and we had a child as well. So to try to juggle all of those things at the same time, it was a lot of new things, and I just really needed that support system.
Great. But you decided that you want to have mentorship as SCO. What made you seek that and seek their help?
Right. So I didn't know about SCORE until I did one of the courses for aesthetics. I was learning about Botox and fillers and peels and all that stuff. And they gave us a workbook. And at the back of that, there was an index of resources. And there was one for helping you set up your own business. And they said it was free. And that was a big thing for me because I didn't know what I was getting into. And I knew that spending a lot of money into something that was like unknown as to how much I was going to get out of it, I was definitely going to take the free resource. And it was available in my own city. So I immediately, reached out to SCORE because of that, just to see what it was about. I didn't know anything, but I just knew that it was going to be helpful for starting up a business.
And what was all required for starting the business that SCORE helped you with?
It was a lot more than I thought. So we needed a business plan. And after going through all of that, I understand that most businesses do not have a business plan. And I also understand that most businesses fail most likely because they don't have a business plan. So I had to come up with a business plan. I didn't know what that entailed. And that's where SCORE really helped me. And it was a plan for, your layout, your marketing, your staffing, basically how you're going to operate everything, how you're going to finance it, and what are your projections.
How much was it clear to you prior to that? Like getting into the business plan, putting in the numbers, and there was a lot of learning that you went through. And as a physician, how challenging was it to learn the financial side? And how SCORE helped you demystify, especially the financial aspects?
It was pretty challenging because we learned zero about that in medical school. And I actually did do a Bachelor of Science in Business Management. That was in college. Ever since then, everything in my head has been replaced with medicine. So I really was coming from zero. And I found it very challenging, again, because I had, my child at home. I didn't know what I didn't know, basically. And so the way my mentor, Raj, helped me was by giving suggestions on how to calculate certain numbers, what were typical average realistic numbers for different categories like rent, marketing, all of that, and what are more realistic, projections so that we are staying on the safer side, but still able to present a full financial picture for the businesses, the banks, and like my landlord, people like that.
Tarina, I just wanted to know, did you have any benchmark to compare with? Like of somebody else running a med spa and what are the figures? Did you have any such prior knowledge before you started this, or is all out of nowhere?
No, it was completely out of nowhere. The only thing I knew was I knew I wanted to do this, and I had zero knowledge. I also honestly, in my head, didn't think that the business part would be that difficult. I just thought, oh, I'm going to have to learn how to do injections and then I'll just open a business. But it was very humbling to realize all the little things that I had to do and how precise I had to be with the numbers, and I was coming from nowhere. And if I went onto Google and searched, nothing. There was nothing available at that time for med spa numbers. And so that was really where I really leaned in on Raj to help me. And he did put me in contact with other people to also help me with some of those numbers. And then I happened to find an article on Google, which Raj encouraged me. He's like, you need to keep looking,
Yeah.
you need to find these numbers. And I found an article in Google written by another physician that owned a med spa in Colorado. And she wrote her email at the end of the article saying, if anyone has any questions, reach out to me. So she was my only resource, and she really helped me with a lot of those numbers.
Okay.
But it was like every time I would come back with something vague, Raj would be like, no, we need something more specific. And so it took a while. It took several months, but hunt through all the numbers and come up with the numbers that I ultimately came up with together with Raj.
Excellent. But did SCORE help you connect with the banks and getting the funding?
Yeah, they did. So again, I came into it not knowing anything, and he said, we need all of this. And, it had to be like, it's kind of like doing a presentation for college or
Banks.
school where it was like a 50-page, thing that we had to present to the bank. So it had to be perfected before we could even meet with the banks. And he set up the meetings with the banks because the banks
Lovely.
have loan officers that work with the SBA. And again, something if I had found out on my own, it probably would have taken like maybe 6 months. Whereas with Raj, it took like maybe 1 or 2 months. He connected me with these loan officers. If there were things so the banks need a lot of information. So if there were certain things that the loan needed, they would ask me, but I would ask Raj to help translate it because I'm like, I don't know what they're talking about. And so he would also connect me with other people that he had connections with that would help me with little things like maybe accounting or a lawyer, for a specific lawyer that you need for different things, trademarking and
Yeah.
things like that. So it was very helpful because I knew I could trust the people he was connecting me with.
That was an SBA loan, right? Through the bank.
Yes.
Good. Tell me, most small businesses also have this challenge. How do you do your pricing for your services? It's a very critical question. There is nothing it's not a commodity, it's a service. So
Right.
how do you decided your servicing? I mean, pricing for your service?
Right. So I put myself in the patient's shoes, but also I knew that I wanted to give genuinely the best service and be the best possible. So I did spend 2 years studying and taking different courses and came to understand and realize that most of the people performing these services are not physicians, and even half of them are not even medical providers. And so I knew that I was going to be one of the better quality offerings. And then I had to research all of the med spas in my area. So 1 mile radius, 3 mile radius, 5 miles, 10 miles, things like that. And when I did that research, I would sometimes a lot of these places wouldn't give out pricing over the phone. They definitely didn't have it on their website. So I would have to go visit in person and pretend to be a patient. And that way I could get their pricing and all of that and understand who is doing the treatments, what is their experience, what is their education, and what is the value they're getting out of each service. And then determining from that what would be reasonable for me to charge, and depending on also the area that I am establishing myself in, and then taking into account my credentials. And then if I was a patient, would I pay that much to get a doctor to inject me? So that's how I came up with my pricing.
And like you said, the area. So why you chose that location, Heights Makata?
So, according to a lot of the research I did on Google, they said when you're a business owner, you want to choose a location that is no more than 15 minutes away from where you live so that you're not wasting time commuting. And so I thought I was just going to look somewhere that was closer to where I live. I live in Oak Forest, and I met with a realtor for one of the areas near my house. And she decided to show me multiple locations. And the Heights Mercantile was the last place she showed me, and it was a lot more expensive, but it was so much nicer by far. And so I thought, a med spa, if I want to charge this much, it needs to be a nice place.
Correct. Perfect. The second aspect for lady with a child, the second child born year later. How did you manage the business and the newborn, the family? What are the challenges? How could you do that?
It was very difficult. So initially, when I opened, I had my son. He was 2 years old, and I was at the business from morning till evening. Our hours were at that time 10 to 6, and I would sit there all day and get zero patients or one person, walking in, something like that, and I would still sit there 6 days a week. And so I started realizing that my son wasn't as attached to me as he was to my husband, and I decided that I should start switching out Saturdays. So I worked every other Saturday instead of every single Saturday. And then when I had my daughter, I hired more staff when
Yeah.
I was about to deliver her. So about like 8 months pregnant, I hired somebody, an esthetician, to do some services while I was gone. And I was only gone for about 3 weeks, but I had a lot of support from my husband. My parents live here, my in-laws live here. So helping with the baby. After having the baby for about 3 weeks afterwards, I returned to work. I was only part-time. I was trying to pump in between patients. It was a lot of work, but it was great because it was still relatively new, and I didn't want to be gone from the business when I'm still trying to build it up. So it worked out okay.
Mhm. Soon enough you had the COVID. Primarily couple of years were affected. So how did you navigate that crisis?
Yeah, I was worried because we opened in 2018 and I was trying to build the business. Then I had the baby in 2019. And so I feel like that set me back. And then COVID happened in 2020. So I was worried again. I was like, this is setting me back even more. And that financial projections I had, I was like, this is
Yep.
not following any of those projections. I
Right.
couldn't have predicted any of this. So it was very helpful. Did reach out to Raj for help, for suggestions. And then the SBA really helped because they did help with paying some of the business loans for several months. And I learned from other med spa owners that we could ask our laser companies and our landlords for some delay on some of the expenses. We had to close for 2 months total. And then I didn't know what to expect. So when I reopened, I had to hire new staff because we had a little bit of turnover during that 2 month period. And I had hired new staff. I was training them, and it got very busy very quickly,
Okay.
to the point where I was just way too busy and I didn't know how to handle that
Excellent.
part.
You talked about staff turnover. The managing or HR is normally a challenge for an entrepreneur. Okay.
Yes.
So what were your learnings and what system have you put in place now for training for the new staff and so that you are able to retain them?
Yeah. So overall, I feel like owning a business is always a learning experience, no matter how long you've had it. And I have always come to realize that managing people is the most difficult part of the job. I think if you look at it in terms of you're the employer, you have to understand what it's like to be an employee. But as an employer, you also want to make sure that the business is happy, your employees are happy, and your customers are happy. And it's difficult to make that happen across all. And you have to also understand you'll never be able to make all of them happy, but you can set in place certain systems and processes from the very beginning to make sure that things run as smoothly as possible. And in that way, the employees will be happy. So it wasn't until the last several years that I implemented
Yeah.
this, but we have organizations, we have systems, processes in place. So we have regular meetings, we have a lot of communication between the staff so they understand what's expected of them, they understand how they get compensated, they understand reward system, they understand our values and what we're here for. So I had to set values, we had to set a vision, and I had to make sure they understand, what their growth trajectory is, how they can grow. So not just money wise, but also just position and responsibility wise.
It's very important in your kind of setup. Number one, the location, kind of a premium location. Number two, each of your staff would be interacting with the incoming patient, the customers.
Correct.
So, it's not only your interaction matters, each staff member's interaction matters to make up the image of Med Spa. Very good point. Tell me, I understand your turnover is $1.5 million and with 2,300 patients. So, I mean, was it smooth sailing to reach this kind of a turnover? Or how was the journey milestones wise?
I wouldn't say it was smooth sailing because, like I said, we started in 2018. I was a hospitalist before then. So I wasn't even a physician that had any patient base. Zero. I didn't do my training or residency in Houston. So I didn't know any patients here. And we were new to the area. So I didn't know any neighbors, any local friends, businesses, nothing. So that was there. And I also had limited time because I had to be at the business, but I also wanted to be with my child. So time to network and all of that was a little bit more difficult. Other challenges were of course COVID and having my baby, but any patient that was there, I would capture them and I would make sure that they got a great experience, retained a lot of value. And so patients or customers we eventually got was through word of mouth. And then networking. So, networking in the area, understanding other businesses in the area and connecting with them. So, I did do events with other businesses to kind of expand my reach. We did some events in high-end apartment buildings in the area, networking with like the neighborhood, being on Facebook groups and posting there. We have a farmer's market in our retail center. So setting up a table there, things like that. So a lot of just like physical kind of
Exactly.
networking and outreach.
Yeah, physical, let's say, interaction that mattered rather than in your case, much of digital marketing, right? Not the Instagrams and Facebooks that could attract.
Right. Because if you have only digital, if you only have social media and a website in this industry, you're going to attract the wrong kind of customer. So if you want somebody that's willing to pay more money for higher value, they want to have a personal connection. They want to understand the person and see the person that is going to inject their face because people get worried about coming out looking funny, frozen, fake, overfilled, and they want to be able to trust that person who is going to be doing a procedure on their face. And
Yeah.
so we had to build up reviews. I think Google reviews would have been the best way, but in the beginning, we didn't have any reviews. So it was also about asking any patients that did come, say that, hey, if you did enjoy your service and your treatment here, can you please write us a review? It would really help us out. So that is also something that helped us. And then eventually, of course, the website, you have to have a website and we had to have social media just so that the patients, if they're interested, they can see a little bit more about what we do. So it wasn't like an either or, it's kind of you have to do both.
It's not only retention of the customers coming back has a lot of value. Repeat customer, that's how the word of mouth
Yeah.
marketing really starts. So, did you really work out any or take any advice on what's the strategy I'm going to adopt for getting the customer loyalty?
So in the beginning, of course, I didn't think about all of these things, but I did want to have a membership. And so we did tweak the membership about 2 years later. So that helps. Improving our processes really helped. So what I mean by that is making sure that the front desk asks every patient about the membership, makes sure that the patient knows about the memberships. The front desk has to give new patients tours of our office so that the patient, even if they're coming in just for Botox, they understand all the other services that we have available at the office. We understand how to time everything. So when the patient comes in, they get the tour, they understand that we do a bunch of other things.
Yep.
I do the service and then I start to recommend other treatments to them. And then I start to recommend the membership. Then when they check out, my front desk again talks about the membership, but also they make sure they rebook the patient for their next visit. So that was also very key, is to book them automatically for their next, because every service that we do here has a recurring visit. Sort of like when you go to the dentist and you're in the room, they rebook you in the room before you even leave, to go pay out in the front. And so that's the way you are kind of guaranteed that you're continuing to see your dentist. Same way we do that here in our office.
These med spas, do they have a kind of their own association or network where you participate? You have something like that?
Yes, we have quite a few. So the biggest one is called AmSpa. It is the American Med Spa Association.
Okay.
And so they have a lot of resources on different laws for each state and guidelines. And then they have a conference every year. And then the pharmaceutical companies that make these products, so the company that makes Botox, the companies that make, the fillers, they have their own networks, and they'll have, different events and training events or little dinners and conferences and things like that.
Okay, tell me, looking back, you think some mistake you did, you could have avoided now, looking back?
Yes, I could have avoided, but it's also important to know that you can never avoid having any mistake. It'll never be perfect. But I think a big one for me was I should not have gone with the financing companies that were recommended or suggested to me by the laser company. So when you go to buy a laser, the lasers are 100,000 plus per laser.
Treatments, yeah.
And so they automatically will bring financing with them so that they can get you to sign immediately. So
Correct.
they'll say, hey, you can have this device today and you won't even have to start paying until 3 months from now. So by then you will have made this much money, and then all you have to pay is this much per month and whatever. And you get excited to get this laser. And then you look at it afterwards and the interest is just
Yeah.
killer. I would have been
Yes,
able to
yes.
get half or even a third of what I paid.
So
But
they're good. They are pretty good at marketing, right?
yes, that's all they're good at is the marketing.
They are smart. Yeah. Early part of you were talking about you need to be passionate about something while starting a business. How important it is, or can you like to say something more on that? Passion.
Yeah, I think that is actually the most important thing. So I mentioned I knew that I wanted to do these treatments. I want to open my own business. That was not my thought. My thought was I want to be able to do these treatments. And I think what I just mentioned with all these issues that came up with having a baby, having two kids that I had to watch over, and going through COVID, so many setbacks, it would have been very easy to just say,
True.
I quit and close it, because it would have been too much hassle and stress, especially if it was something that I did not like to do.
Correct.
And even if it was something that I would maybe be okay with doing, a lot of people go in and do their profession or their work just to have a job. And it's not necessarily a job that they love, but it's just a job that pays the bills. And if that was that for me, if this business was like that for me, it would have definitely been closed. But I just love and have a passion for what I do. I love doing the treatments. I love seeing my patients, and I loved learning about it. So anytime I would go to conferences or learn, new techniques for injections, it was something I would have rather done than watch a movie or go out with friends or anything, because I was just so passionate about it. And I think it is very important to start with your passion, because
Correct.
you are going to love things that you're good at. And if you're good at something, you will love
That's
it.
right.
And
Yep.
so, yeah,
Agree with you.
you.
That's what I also believe in. So when you talk to someone who wants to start a business, do you now tell them, look, go to SCORE? They will help you and don't miss that opportunity.
Yes, I always tell people that, because in the beginning, like I said, it was difficult to understand, where I should go, what resources are good and not. There were a lot of consultants that were there, and they're like, med spa consultants specifically. And I told you it was difficult for me to find information about med spa. So I was like, maybe I should just go with a consultant, because they probably know everything and they charge a lot of money. So when you think of
Yep.
generally when you think of something that's free versus something that is a lot of money, you're going to think that,
Right.
oh, the one that costs money is going to be good
Useful.
quality, useful. But I did almost go with a consulting company that was going to charge me $80,000. And it's going to be worth it because I want to do it right. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. I don't want to mess it up. I also was going to take the free resource. And what I realized and what I'm realizing now also is that with SCORE, it's because they're volunteering. It's genuine. Like they're going to give their sincere and genuine effort into it.
That's
So
right.
they're not trying to scam you. They're not trying to go with their own intentions on the side and wheel you towards that. It's more of like I'm here to help you. I'm offering my resources for free. And you're going to get the best help that you can. Whereas with a consultant, they're going to put you with connections that will help them money wise, financially. And you can't always trust that. And I understand that now because I've seen so many consultants. I mean, I haven't worked with them, but they're in some of my groups and I see the way they talk and to other people and all of them, like they have their own interests in mind.
Very true. Tell me, you being in the medical field, do you have any problem with the medical liability insurance as a business owner? Or that's pretty standard here?
It's pretty standard. It is very expensive, but I used a insurance broker and he would give me quotes from different insurance companies and then I would just choose the one that was going to fit me the best.
So what's your plan? How do you see Med Spa in 5 years? Are you considering any additional locations or additional services growing Med Spa?
I definitely want to move into a bigger spot because I've been at this same location for 7.5 years. And since it was my first, location and it was a high retail spot, it's only 1,500 square feet. So I definitely want to have more rooms. With more rooms, I want to be able to offer more lasers, more laser rooms, and more staff, which would help with adding on more services as well.
Very good. What impact do you want Artavi to have on the Houston community?
So recently this year, we added more of a wellness side, and that's also something that I would see and anticipate expanding 5 years from now. But wellness is something that is super important and people are really getting into these days, specifically for perimenopause and menopause treatments. A lot of women don't have support. I used to be a primary care physician. My husband is a primary care physician, and we do not get training in hormone therapy or how to navigate menopause and perimenopause. And so we started offering those services in our clinic. And I think it has really, really helped a lot of my patients so quickly. I mean, they'll be crying and they'll say, I haven't felt like this they don't even remember how long. I haven't slept like this in 10 years, things like that. If they've been depressed or have anxiety and all of those kinds of things. And so our vision is just to help the people of our community with feeling confident, getting that self-esteem, beautiful on the inside and the outside, feel young on the inside and
Perfect.
look the way they feel on the outside.
Excellent. See, this is a podcast which will be on various platforms. Many small businesses, owners, entrepreneurs will be listening to it. What's your advice to someone listening to this who wants to start what you were in 2018? Similar position many are now. They come to school. So what do you tell them?
I would say lean on your resources, use the support, ask all the questions, and don't be afraid to do opening the business because a lot of people have ideas and then they never actually follow through with it. So don't be afraid of that. Just use your resources and your support and ask all the questions, but definitely make it happen, especially if it's your passion.
Good, Dr. Tarina Desai. That was wonderful. Really enjoyed talking to you. And we from SCORE wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Yeah. Look
Yes.
forward to hearing from you more and more.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Small Business Success Stories at SCORE Houston. If you are an entrepreneur or small business owner We'd love to support your journey. You can reach us at 713-487-6565 or visit us at 8701 South Gessner, Suite 1200, Houston, Texas, 77074. Our office is open Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., except for federal holidays, and walk-ins are always welcome. To learn more, request free mentoring, or register for our workshops, visit us online at www.score.org/Houston. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and remember, at SCORE, we're here to help you thrive.